Thank you for coming today. My name is Becky Stevens. I'm the Employee Wellness Coordinator. I'm the lady you get all those emails about, but I'm glad you read this one because you're the lucky 15 is what I'm calling y'all. It's wonderful for you to be here. This is our first cooking class that we are doing, that we have done for the city. So far, so good. We aren't in a position where we can cook in front of you and then do it. There's just not enough time for us to do all that. So all the food has been prepared and is warming up now. You saw what we're going to be having, so looking forward to serving that to you. I want to introduce several people. My coworker Angie is helping me cook in the background. Rich Loftus from Bon Secours. He helps us with classes like this, bring practitioners in, do our health screenings, things like that. Miranda Hayden is our registered dietitian.
Hi,
she
everybody.
just started with Bon Secours, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's going to be presenting the information to you first part of class. And, you know, Andy and Regina from the city, so they're helping us tape so that those that could not make it will be able to view it on internet and everything. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Miranda doing her presentation. Then we're going to have Q&A. That's going to be like the first 30 minutes. And then we will be serving you your meal. All right? So, Miranda, take it away.
What is your name again?
I'm Becky.
Becky. Hi, everybody. Just as Becky stated, my name is Miranda Hayden. I'm a registered dietitian. And it just so happens that this month is National Nutrition Month. How many knew that? Nobody knew it was National Nutrition Month?
That's why we're doing it.
Yay. Well, I get really excited about National Nutrition Month because it is a time where I can show you or show people how to eat right. And so I'm new with Bon Secours, but I've actually been a registered dietitian for over 20 years. I've done work with Bon Secours before, and now I've come back. And so I'm with the In Motion physical therapy program, and I don't know if you know about In Motion, but we do all types of education on therapy, including nutrition, weight loss, fitness. I do sports information, so if some of you want to get in shape and want to know how to eat to get in shape, I'm the lady. Okay, and in your folders that I've prepared for you is my business card, telephone number, and address. But just to start off with some basic nutrition information, I'd like for you to take a look in your handout. I have some information on one side about healthy snacks, a 7-day menu guide to help you out. Most people don't realize what you're taking in when you're eating as far as the calorie consumption, the fat consumption, and sometimes we just need to know what is the right amount of food to eat. And so what I usually go by when I'm talking about weight and calories, I like to look at carbohydrates first, because carbohydrates are our energy source foods, but they are a lot of calorie consumption. Second to fat, okay? But most of the times what we want to do is grab foods that are quick and easy so we can get out the door. And so a lot of us may have cereal and milk or oatmeal or something quick like an instant grit or an instant oatmeal so we can be on our way, or a glass of milk. But all those are carbohydrates, and sometimes if you don't know what carbohydrates are, you can consume way too many. And if you're not as active, do you know what happens? Those carbohydrates are stored as fat. Actually, it's stored as fat. The liver will take it and store it as fat. And so you need carbohydrates for energy, but if you're not expending more energy and you're taking in more calories, that results in weight gain. And so take a look at the 7-day menu plan that I put in here for you. This is a basic. It's a 2,000 calorie food pattern. And I wanted to stick with that because it could be good for weight loss for a man or for a woman. Easily taking back some of the carbohydrates that are here, it can easily be turned into a 1,500 or 1,800 calorie plan. Most of you will probably look at this and think it is enough food, because I get that a lot when I'm doing nutrition counseling. That if you look at each day for breakfast, for lunch, and dinner, the idea is to make sure it's balanced. And that's what I want you to think about. Is your meal balanced? Are you having all food groups? Are you having too many food groups, for instance, carbohydrate, protein, and fat over the other? And so by now, I want you to be thinking about what a carbohydrate is, because I haven't told you. And so what I tell my patients when they come in, try not to think of what is a carbohydrate, think of what is not, because it's very easy when you think of what a carbohydrate is not. So it's not a meat, and it's not a non-starchy vegetable. So things like green leafy vegetables, things that are colorful, are not carbohydrates. So the more carbohydrates you take in and the less you exercise, unfortunately, is weight gain. So when you think about what you had for breakfast this morning, most people always want a little bit of a juice, for instance. They say orange juice may give them that kick. You may want coffee and you may put sugar in it instead of a non-sweetener. So if a carbohydrate is everything but meat and non-starchy vegetable, carbohydrates, that sweet roll, carbohydrates, that oatmeal, the grits, the cereal, including the milk, including the sugar you put in your coffee if it's not unsweetened. So candy, everything else is a carbohydrate. So from this point on, I bet you'll start looking at labels. You'll want to know how many grams of carbohydrate or sugar. Now I can get really specific. There's labels in your folder too in the cooking recipes that are given. You'll see on that label. I know there's labels there because I saw them. But what I want you to think about for my presentation, if you don't get anything else, I want you to look at total carbohydrates on your food labels. And some of you may not be looking at food labels, but I bet you in January, maybe in December, you had a New Year's resolution. And it could have been for weight loss. It could have been to be more active. It could have been to eat healthier. But I can tell you, counting carbs and watching carbohydrates is where I usually start. Now, fat has the most calories per gram for food, but most of the time, we always consume way too many carbohydrates, as I mentioned before. So with a 2,000 calorie meal pattern, it's a good start for a man, and decreasing some of the carbohydrates that now you know are not meat and they are not non-starchy vegetables. When I say that, I mean beans are a starchy vegetable. A potato is a starchy vegetable, so those are carbohydrates. Okay, so for instance, let's take a look at day one, and let's see if there is a variety of food, including protein, carbohydrate, and a little bit of fat here. Creamy oatmeal, it says cooked in milk. I did not make this up, but I'm merely showing you this just to show you a variety and what carbohydrates are and how to count them. Fat-free milk would be a carbohydrate, the raisin would be a carbohydrate, and the oatmeal would be a carbohydrate, and the orange juice would be a carbohydrate. This is an all-carbohydrate meal. Carbohydrates stay within our system about 2 hours. Protein about 3 hours, and fat about 4. So all of you cereal and milk eaters for breakfast, grits or oatmeal, your energy level or your hunger may come back after 2 hours. You've only been to work an hour or two, and now it's time for a snack. But what I want you to start doing is adding a small amount of protein and not as many carbohydrates, for instance. You may want to have prepared oatmeal or grits that you've done the night before, or it may be left over from the day before. It can last 2 or 3 days in the refrigerator. If you don't have time, you want to make things that are really quick to grab and go. The same thing with your egg. If you have an egg, for instance, for breakfast, you don't have to boil them that morning, or even scramble them for that matter, but I think fresh scrambled eggs are better than the day before. But for instance, a boiled egg, you could do that a day or two before. So there's things you can think about that are really quick and easy that you could grab to go. I have a question already. You could grab and go. Go ahead.
Get back to the oatmeal and stuff. Now, cream of wheat, I eat that like 3-4 times in the morning. How is that?
3 or 4 times in the morning, or are you saying 3 or 4 portions?
A week.
A week, you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
in the morning.
I would say that's pretty good. Cream of wheat is good. I didn't get to talking about fiber, but cream of wheat has good fiber. And I'm going to tell you a trick with fiber and carbohydrate when I get a little further down. But I always like to teach balance. Okay, if you have a carbohydrate by itself, like I say, you'll be snacking before it's lunchtime, because 2 hours is going to be, and that's it for carbohydrate. 3 hours for protein, a little bit of fat. So what I would change in here, I've already crossed out, I have the master sheet and you guys don't, so I may ask for some of your involvement. What I would do instead of a juice every morning is add a little bit of fresh fruit. Okay, I would add some berries here. Think of color. Okay, anytime you choose a food, think of color, because if it has color, it's going to be rich in nutrients and vitamins. And I always say too, what can this food or what can this carbohydrate do for me? So all carbohydrates really aren't equal. We know what they are, but when you think about, as an example, choosing and I think we have today, a sweet potato versus a white potato. One is colorful, one has more nutrients, one has more fiber, but they're both carbohydrates, as an example. Orange juice over a fresh orange. Eating fresh fruit gives you more fiber, so it does help with the carbohydrate breakdown when it's digested. But at the same time, what I'd like for you to do is add a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat. So what's wrong with this breakfast here? I would have added maybe not as much carbohydrates, but a little bit of margarine on toast, or here it says oatmeal if you want a little bit, put a little bit of margarine in the oatmeal, or use a little bit of fat to keep you going. What this does is when you have a balanced meal, is it will cut back on a lot of snacking in between. And if you do that every time, you may not need to snack at all. A breakfast, lunch, and dinner would be okay. Now, I know some of you have seen the commercial, eat more, lose weight, okay? And the theory behind that is pretty much eating 6 times a day smaller meals instead of 3 large meals. So it's giving your body a chance to keep the metabolism going, breaking down food. So instead of having a traditional 8, 12, and 4 p.m. as an example meal, you would have an 8, 10, 12, 2, and 4. So you're keeping your body wrapped up with the same amount of calories in 3 meals, except now it's broken down into 6. So there's different things that we could do. And sometimes 6 meals are better for people that may have certain diseases like diabetes, for instance, because we're not ever given a chance for blood sugars, in case we have any diabetics in the group, to have a chance to rise, or you to snack in between that may not be healthy. I also created some tips for you on a yellow piece of paper that says, don't allow yourself to be hungry. And that's the same theory that I'm giving you now. We do crazy things when we get hungry. You know, I'm pulling into McDonald's, I'm going to Burger King. I've been thinking about going to that fast food restaurant, and now I'm hungry, now it's the perfect time. Okay, so take a look at that. You'll understand as I go on what those mean. You're tired, you're confused sometimes when you're hungry, so don't allow yourself to get hungry, and that's my theory behind it. Looking at lunch sometimes, this is a time where you can really add in fresh foods. Lunch, you can add in fresh vegetables, your carrots, your broccoli. When I say fresh, I mean raw, okay? What I'm thinking about is fiber. What fiber will also do is help break down those carbohydrates, like I mentioned. Every meal, think about fiber. And so there's a trick. If you look at a label that you have from your menu from your recipes, from your recipes, if you can find a food item that has 5 grams of fiber, so that would be another challenge when you're looking at labels to see how many total grams of carbohydrates are there. Look at fiber. And so if you can find one, it will be a bit of a challenge, but once you do it one time in the grocery store, you won't have to spend as much time the second time around. So once you find 5 grams of fiber or more, you can actually deduct that from the total grams of fiber. So you mentioned cream of wheat, and I think your cream of wheat will qualify for a deduction. Okay, so you're eating it 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know if you're eating it for fiber or you've heard it's been good, but it's pretty good. Are you adding anything to your cream of wheat? What are you adding to your cream of wheat? Almonds are a good choice. Did everyone hear that? Cinnamon is a good choice too.
Canned milk, condensed milk.
Okay, and maybe if it's not fat-free, you may be adding a little bit of fat. I don't know how much. But just remember, I didn't tell you this either, carbohydrates really add up. If you're not using them for what they're meant for, they will be stored as fat. So how many carbohydrates, how many grams? I'm telling you, do you know what I mean when I say carbohydrate grams or carbohydrates? Typically there's a certain amount that is average consumed for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so when you look at a label, I'm going to take one here because I know you have the same thing because I saw the label on the back. And this one must be yours, Becky. Okay, so let's take a look at the corn pudding because I just want you to see a label. When you see total carbohydrates, you're going to see lots of things underneath there. Just to get started.
Yeah, she's talking about in your packet, kind of deep into it, and I'll explain these further.
Probably halfway.
The one that says corn pudding, and then we'll explain how we got this. This is actually what we're having today.
Yeah. Yum. But just for the sake of a label, I want you to look at total carbohydrates, okay? A lot of things underneath the carbohydrates, and one thing you should be particular attention to is the fiber, the dietary fiber. That's always good to have 5 or more. Remember we talked about that. But the total carbohydrates there are 33.5 in this particular serving. So be aware of labels that may have 2 items in that serving. Another question.
5 for the day or 5 per meal? 5 grams of
Fiber. If you can find any item that has 5 grams of fiber in that particular item, on that label is what I mean. Now per day, ladies, we need 20 to 25 grams. Guys, 30 to 35. So, and that's why I'm saying per item if you can find that. You won't be able to find it in every item, because a lot of items will not have 5. And that's why I like for lunch and dinner to include fresh vegetables. And that's why I like for breakfast instead of juice to include fresh fruit. You're getting in, every time you add fresh fruits and vegetables, you're getting fiber. But fruit is a carbohydrate. Just remember that. Everything except for non-starchy vegetables and meat, as in, you know, an egg or steak or chicken, fish or turkey. Everything else is a carbohydrate. It does not mean you cannot have them. Just be cognizant of how much you're having, because most times we eat and we're not aware of how much we're eating. And that could be starting with a small, simple step of just being aware of how much you're eating. And you may not realize it, but cutting back, you could see weight loss really quickly. So that might be something you can do before you start your exercise regimen to lose some pounds or lose some weight that you may have a hard time with it. Just being aware of how many carbohydrates you're eating. But I want to show you this a label here in general, because it says 33.5 grams of carbohydrates. The standard amount of carbohydrates to have for women and men are different, because men expend more calories and need more calories than women do in general. And your lifestyle as well. Some people have a sedentary lifestyle, some people are very active. But in general, what I would do and how I teach is how to count the carbohydrates, how to know exactly how many to have. And so for that reason, I label each portion in a certain amount as a serving of 15 grams. And so your cream of wheat, I'm going to keep picking on you because you mentioned it first. Your cream of wheat generally in a package is probably about a half a cup. And so Miranda has a general rule of thumb. I have a lot of general rules of thumb. So I know people like convenience. You don't want to keep looking through things. A half cup is a serving for everything. We'll say that. Okay? Generally, it could be a little bit less. It could be a little bit more. But you will never go wrong with a half a cup. It's never proved me wrong so far. So if you've had a half a cup of cream of wheat, okay, but you decided to have 1 cup. So now you, instead of the half cup being 1 carbohydrate choice, adding 1 cup makes it 2. Does everybody understand that logic? Go ahead.
Cooked or not?
Cooked or not? Cooked.
Cream of wheat.
Cooked. Definitely cooked.
Wow.
Yeah. So a half cup is a serving. It may say 3/4 cup on that package, but a half cup is a serving. Now be careful, because on your box of cream of wheat, it's probably going to say something like 30 grams of a carbohydrate. Okay? Typically, each carbohydrate is 15 grams. If it's 17, don't try to make it fit and add up. It's just one. If it's 17 or 18, it's just 1 serving, okay? So I won't go a little bit under, a little bit over. I don't like to do that because I don't want to make it complicated. And so, for instance, this particular choice would be 2 carbohydrate choices, each choice being 15 grams. Does everybody understand that? Okay. And so each choice being 15 grams, this particular item would be 2. So I'm saying that to let you know every meal pretty much, 3 to 4 servings of a carbohydrate is average. If you're looking at each choice being 15 grams per meal, 3 to 4 choices for ladies, guys are around 4 to 5. And so with that being said, 45 to 60 grams per meal for ladies. Okay, you guys, you'll be anywhere between 40 to 75. For weight loss, I generally go back 1 more and do about 2 for ladies, 2 or 3 choices, and 3 or 4 choices for guys. So I'm cutting back on a little bit of carbohydrate. But at the same time, it's hardly noticeable because you're adding in, with that all carbohydrate meal that you're used to and you're used to filling up, now you're adding in protein that you haven't done before. That's going to last 3 hours. A little bit of fat that you may have used, could be cooking oil for your egg if that's what you decide to do. It's going to last 4 hours. And so always being cognizant of your carbohydrates always help with weight loss or weight maintenance and prevent weight gain. So sometimes eating more in a sense is a benefit because now you've added the protein, which is healthy, which is good for you. You've added a small amount of fat and you're not eating as many carbohydrates. So carbohydrates can be a big weight gainer. At the same time, looking at lunch and looking at dinner, with this food pattern, you're given a snack at night, you have a recommendation for lunch and dinner. Try to think of that same theory for breakfast, having carbohydrate, protein, and fat for lunch, in a certain amount, of course. Okay, so that's my spiel on the carbohydrate. Never have an all carbohydrate meal. Yes, ma'am.
You touched on carbs for ladies and for
meals. It's not just about, for me, it's not just about me.
You're exactly right.
Family.
Kids are very active. Now kids, look at how much they eat, and they're not really gaining weight because they're going outside playing, not as much as they used to, but their metabolism is also different. Kids will require more carbohydrates and calories. But for kids, the main thing is to think about what the carbohydrate is and where it comes from. Kids are going to like juice. I can tell you now, for instance, juices at fast food places like McDonald's and Burger King will give you about 12 ounces in their cup for orange juice. So when you're thinking about what you're giving your kids, that is a lot of sugar and a lot of carbohydrate. So they're getting probably twice as many carbohydrates as adults are, but a lot of it, look at where it's coming from. It is a lot of added sugar. Remember, sugar is a carbohydrate as well. Make sure for kids they're getting what's called a complex carbohydrate. Those carbohydrates that come from fiber, for instance, like fresh fruit instead of orange juice would be perfect for children. A baked potato instead of instant mashed potatoes, or like a macaroni and cheese with a lot of fat. Giving them fiber is always best as well.
And if you have a child that it needs to lose weight,
Mm-hmm.
but is still very active, would you then go to what the carbs you would do for, if it's a female, woman, or a male?
I'll tell you
child,
what,
man?
I wish I had my example I have in my office of sodas. For kids, I would cut back, number one, sweetened drinks and beverages.
We don't drink them.
Okay, well, if you don't, that's a big plus for you, because there's a lot of sugar in about 10 teaspoons in a can of Coca-Cola or regular soda of just sugar. So cutting back on sugar, cutting back on a lot of juices is number one for children, because a lot of times they're thirsty, they just want something to drink, or they may want a juice in the morning, and a lot of calories, what I call useless calories, not really beneficial calories, are coming from beverages. But number two, add more fruits and vegetables for children. Remember, the fruits are a carbohydrate, but it's good for kids, because if it's fresh, you're getting the fiber, remember the color theory. If it's color, you've got vitamins, you've got nutrients, okay? The same thing with vegetables, carrots, broccoli, anything with color, you're adding nutrients. But carbohydrates, you can count on them probably burning a little more than us because of their activity and their metabolism. It seems like for women at a certain age, since I'm over 40, I'll say it, at 40, the metabolism just starts to go down. So we have to find a way to either bring it back up, usually with activity as well, and cutting back on our carbohydrate consumption. Good question, though.
Can I ask, if you're going to ask a question, just kind of put your hand up when we get to you.
Okay.
Real quick.
I have another question. Mm-hmm.
It's a twofold question. Is a egg a protein and a carbohydrate?
No, an egg is a protein.
Okay.
Only.
Only.
Yes.
And is it healthier if you scramble it or boil it? Is there a difference?
There's not a difference if you scramble and boil it, but if you
Health-wise?
boil it, you can take the yolk out pretty easy. And
Okay.
what I would suggest if you do that, and by the way, the American Heart Association recommends, even for heart patients, 2 to 3 real eggs per week. But Egg Beaters has some excellent recipes out now that eliminates the cholesterol. So I would advise, if you're on a cholesterol-lowering medication, or if you'd like to try it. Or, I have a lot of people that might do 3 egg whites, just, to get that filling from 2 eggs. I always say, if you like a real egg, you can do the egg white of 1 egg and 1 real egg with the yolk to mix it in a little bit, just to cut back on the fat and the cholesterol. Cholesterol is in the yolk. Okay. Good question, though. Anything else? Since we were talking about protein in your handout as well, there's some tips here on a variety of proteins. So protein foods include both animal and plant, beans, peas, soy nuts, nuts, and seeds, because you get a lot of protein from these foods as well, besides, the fleshy meat, the steak and the chicken. Another good healthy tip with protein is choose seafood twice a week. Eating seafood in place of meat or poultry twice a week. Select a variety of seafood, including some that are higher in oils and low in mercury, like the salmon, the trout, or the herring. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on protein shakes and stuff like that that gyms and stuff advertise as smoothies?
Well, actually, as I became an athlete a little later on in my life, I do like them. I like extra protein when you're as active. If you're leading a sedentary lifestyle, a protein shake may not be as appropriate because it will have the carbohydrates in it as well. You're going to be looking at labels now, you're going to be looking at total carbohydrates. So if you are active, if you are someone that's in the gym 3 to 4 days a week, I do like protein shakes because it can help what I call a recovery phase or a post-meal workout type of situation. If you want to have a shake before you're going in, you're at work, you know, you go work out around 6 o'clock. So you may be able to have a snack. What that does is just help you to perform better, and help you to recover better, so you'll be able to go back in the gym or be able to perform at your optimal level the next time. So it depends on how many carbohydrates, it depends on what kind of shake it is, but I do like protein shakes for that reason.
So you substitute those in for snacks, but not for meals?
It depends. And some people, if you want a protein shake, for instance, for lunch, it can have as many carbohydrates, as much protein as a meal. So that may be something, you know, if you're very active or you lead an active lifestyle with working out a few times a week, I don't oppose to that in place of lunch, because it has some nutrients and vitamins that may help you in the gym. You may be able to have a little more energy and work a little bit harder. If you are doing weights, particularly, weight-resistant exercises. By the way, ladies, weight-resistant exercises help to increase metabolism. The more muscle mass, the faster you burn those calories. So another recommendation from me is to always at least have 2, 5, or 10-pound weights, whatever you can handle. And you can really work those arms or ankle weights, work those legs during the commercial of your favorite 1-hour show. Make sure it's an hour. So on the commercials, you work it out, okay? But as far as having a shake, you know, for lunch, I think it would be a good idea if you're very active and if it has the right amount of nutrients and carbohydrates as a meal, because it'll help you in a sense to work out better and perform better.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
There's lots of them out there, and lots of protein bars too. Lots and lots. Any other questions? Okay, so know what protein is. You want to be able to add some protein at every meal, just like a carbohydrate. So nuts and seeds. Becky talked about adding almonds. What were you talking about? Adding almonds to cream of wheat. Yeah, those are really good and good for your heart. Some nuts are better than others, but almonds is a good nut. So adding fiber again. So almonds have a lot of fiber. So always think about adding fiber. Always think about adding fresh. And always think about, just to start, and I could stand here for an hour or 2 or 3, but I won't. But I just want to let you know, that's what I start off teaching, is carbohydrate counting. Because I think, because most of us, and it's hard, what you need is someone like a cheerleader, or what you need is someone to help keep you motivated. It's easy to get started in January, everybody is, but it's March now and it's National Nutrition Month, so if you've fallen off the bandwagon, get back on the bandwagon a little bit. Look at your carbohydrate amount as far as how much you're taking in at each meal. Ladies, you don't need more than 45 to 60 grams per meal. Just start looking at labels, you'll know. I was just looking at grits. My 8-year-old loves instant grits and cooked grits. He just loves grits. We're from the South, from North Carolina, so I remember grits almost every day. And that's another thing. If you think about how you were raised, you eat things you don't even realize it. And so sometimes thinking about, oh, my grandfather had pork sausage or bacon every day. That was just something that was on the stove every morning for breakfast. But he was a hog farmer, so I guess because it was really inexpensive. But go ahead.
Yeah. Let's suppose you picked one of these breakfasts that you kind of liked, like your father, and as opposed to you just basically ate that every day. I have oatmeal every day, and I really like oatmeal, so that's, you know, 365 days a week just about.
You have oatmeal pretty much. And how much do you have?
I use instant oatmeal. I take the things and just dump it in there and throw some cherries in there with some water.
Yep, and hopefully you have a protein with that too.
I will in the future.
Yep. You can do 2 egg whites. You don't have to do a whole egg, because I know some people are going to be conscious about the cholesterol and the fat as well. But just remember, the American Heart Association does not mind you having 2 or 3 real eggs. Kids generally, you know, they'll eat the whole egg as well, but you'll be surprised at what your children, you mentioned children in the back, what your children know about healthy eating. But whatever is in the house and what they see, generally, they may not have an input, but when you start bringing things in that are healthier, they may say, oh, I saw someone at school with string cheese. I may want to try it. 0 carbs and string cheese, no carbohydrate, good source of protein, and they're making it now, they have it where it's very minimal fat. So that could be a good snack for children, is something like string cheese and an apple, for instance, because you're getting fresh fruit in there. But children, a lot of times, And trying things more than once you'll have to do for children. If they say, oh, I don't like that one time, try it again. And another thing you can do with kids, if they like broccoli and that's all they like, you can have it every other day. Because if they love it or they like it, they'll eat it that often. You may get tired of cooking it, but they really need the nutrition. They really need the vegetable. And so there's some tricky things that you can do. We haven't harped on sodium a little bit, and I always like to talk about salt because salt actually causes your body to retain fluid. It gets in those cells and it holds on. And there's so many in our community where hypertension is prevalent. We need to watch our sodium intake. And we can say that all day long, but since I've already talked about looking at labels, if you're going to look at that label, look at the sodium amount. The American Heart Association, again, recommends if you're on a blood pressure medication, you want to make sure you're between 1,500 and 2,000 milligrams of sodium. 2,400 milligrams is about a half a teaspoon of salt. So it's always best to add it in the cooking while you're cooking your food instead of at the table. So if you've got the shaker habit, if you can start by putting the shaker in the cabinet with the other seasonings and maybe just season your food a little bit with margarine. My favorites are anything that ends in powder because there's no salt. So I use garlic powder a lot. Okay, so I'm a garlic person. It can be fresh, it can be garlic powder. You can season with margarine and vinegars. There's also information on one of the handouts that I gave you. I think the same one here. Spices and herbs can be used to taste. Try spices such as chili powder. You mentioned cinnamon. And if any diabetics in the group, cinnamon is really good for diabetes. Cumin, curry powder, ginger, nutmeg as well. Mustard, garlic powder, onion powder, or pepper. Try fresh or dry herbs such as basil, parsley, cilantro, chives, dill, mint, oregano, rosemary, thyme, or tarragon. Try spice-free or herb blends. And so if you look at a lot of things in a can, okay, try to, you're going to be pretty much half of what the requirement is per day. So that's going to be a lot. Too much sodium. You don't know what the fast food places are, not unless you're on your computer, you're looking up where you're going to go eat and you want to find out the sodium content before you get there. But the sodium amount is going to be way over. And I want to say one of the meals at Burger King or McDonald's, I was just doing this with another class I have, has about 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium. So foods may taste good. It may seem like it's better to eat at places like Chick-fil-A. But if you have time, go on their website and look at the sodium amount. If you're very thirsty afterwards, probably has too much salt. And just remember, a lot of weight lost at first is fluid because if you're eating too much sodium or foods that are high in carbohydrates, for instance, you may also be taking in too much sodium. So your body has a tendency to retain fluid when your sodium content is too high. And that's how your blood pressure is staying really elevated.
What's a good snack right before bed?
Right before bed? You know what I'm going to say. If you're saying right before bed, like if you go to bed at 11 o'clock and you want to eat at 10:45, it is zero, unfortunately.
Snack
I
right before
recommend
go
a
to bed.
snack probably 2 hours prior to going to bed.
Okay.
For certain diseases, and I keep talking about diabetes because I do a lot of education for diabetes, a snack is required. So I use the same regimen for them as I do for anyone else. I'm not going to have an all carbohydrate meal or snack ever. And so sometimes for diabetics to get through the night, and sometimes for people that are very active, for instance. There may be some people in this group that's very active that work out 3 or 4 times during the week. So I always like to add in a carbohydrate and protein. Once you find out what a carbohydrate is, and I told you can't go wrong with a half a cup. That's never failed me yet. So if you want to try a half a cup I would consider, there's some information on portions. For instance, I would do something like my string cheese and apple slices as a snack at night. I would always go with a low amount of protein and a little bit of a carbohydrate for a good snack. Only because if you're hungry, that's going to get you through the night. And some people eat really late and don't eat breakfast. So I know I've got some non-breakfast eaters in the group. We can talk later. Because now when you're going past that 12 hours, you're putting your body in a fasting mode. So your metabolism is really slow. That's all I was going to say if you're not eating breakfast. Your metabolism is really slow, so you may be getting into your body learning to hang on to the calories when you do eat lunch. And your metabolism is really slow and you're not burning them. So we want your body in burning calorie mode, not to hang on to them and not to store the carbohydrates that you're not using. So there's lots of information in your folder. If there are any questions at this point, I'll begin to wrap it up. because I could keep talking forever, like I say.
Can I just
Yes.
I'll interject. What I want to do while we're serving is explain what you're eating, and then while you're eating, Miranda can still answer question and answers from this half-hour period.
Okay.
Will that work?
That will work.
Okay, great.
It looks yummy, and it looks like a good variety. I see color.
Yeah, we have lots of color. Some of the recipes in front of you, you have the main dish being our chicken. We wanted to try to kind of assimilate a Southern Sunday cooking meal. Everybody loves fried chicken, Sunday or any day. This is not fried at all, as you can tell, but what we've done with your packets is you can see I've gotten the recipes from several websites. This was one for Taste of Home Nutty Oven Fried Chicken, which you think would be healthier because there are items on here that make it healthy. For example, this is not frying. But if you turn, you can see what we have done is we have taken the evaporated milk, and I've used fat-free evaporated milk. Instead of salt, we have not used any salt at all in any of these dishes. In fact, I brought the salt on purpose that I bought yesterday to show you. I haven't even opened this yet. None of these dishes have any added salt at all. And we add salt-free items too, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. The seasonings, like Miranda was saying, that really changes things up and gives it better flavor. So if you're taking fat away, it's where we get that satiation, that good feeling like, oh, seasoning can do that so many times. Again, we have not used a whole fryer chicken. We've had boneless, skinless chicken breasts, so that's what you have. And then we didn't use any butter. Anything that required butter in any of these recipes, what I used was extra virgin olive oil spray. There's no butter in any of these recipes at all. So that's our chicken, and you can see the calculation of how we changed it on the next page, and you've got your nutrient values, your ingredient label. This is a really wonderful website anybody can access, and later in your packet I'll show you the page you can go to. But it also gives ratings for the ingredients that we had. So if you look at the evaporated fat-free milk, we got an A grade rating. Could have done better. I did find out something with Bisquick. Use flour instead. Do not use Bisquick if a recipe calls for it, because Bisquick has hydrogenated soybean oil in it. Anything hydrogenated you don't want. Sticks to your arteries. So sorry for that, but we did make it healthier than it was. And trans fats, exactly. Thank you. Also, pecans. We could have done almonds. We could have done almonds, which are healthier. But again, this is a much better alternative than the traditional fried ice cream. I mean, fried ice cream is really good too, isn't it? Fried chicken. The next recipe, you can see eating well. We got the corn pudding recipe, and I've used these recipes with my family for years. This is not the first time. So I knew they were good, and I pulled them from my own and just said, hey, I've done this. I know it's good, and we've made it even healthier. Again, you can see where no salt was added. We substituted the EVO spray, and we took out the breadcrumbs in that case too, because you just don't need that. So there's no breadcrumb toppings on that one. So if you continue to flip on, you'll see your calories. We have a really good rating for everything. This is all the ingredients in these recipes listed, and then you can see your nutrition facts, just like a regular food labeling. And again, no butter, no anything. With the green bean casserole, we all love that. There's no Campbell's cream of mushroom soup in this one. You've got whole fresh mushrooms. You have evaporated milk. Instead of substituting, or what we did for substituting the cream of mushroom soup, has anybody ever seen Laughing Cow? Yeah. It's a little expensive, but it is so good for you. I think this was $3 and you get 8 squares. This was the light French onion, 35 calories per wedge. So we used that, and we added the non-fat evaporated milk to kind of make up that soup consistency to do it. Fresh green, well, they're canned green beans. Normally at home I would do fresh, but not for 20 people. So same with the kernel corn. We use canned corn too. But when you buy those vegetables, make sure that you don't have any salt added in that as well. And again, instead of having the French onion, Durkee's French onions that most of us put on top of that, there's onion in it, and the French onion light Laughing Cow that we use, so you get that onion flavor, and then we put the cornflakes on top, and I sprayed it with the extra virgin olive oil, so again they would brown. Okay? Huh?
They gave
They gave the laughing
Well,
cow.
this one, this recipe, this is a great site, but when I was putting calculations in yesterday, the only thing that it did mess up on was this one, and it would not allow me to do, even though it was a choice, so it did not choose the correct one.
So it's
But
not
if you-
laughing cow.
It's not, yeah. If you look on here, Miranda, maybe you can help me because you're really quick at that.
Yep.
You can tell that there's, in terms of fat, there's 1 gram of saturated fat. There's no trans fats, and you've got 2 grams of protein, low cholesterol, no cholesterol.
Nope.
So it's healthy. So
Can't
this,
beat it, 35 calories, 15
Right.
calories from fat.
And that's for 1 wedge. Now I use 8 wedges for this entire meal, so it's good for you. So disregard those points. That one is miscalculated. That was the only thing that when we did the calculations yesterday that came out differently. But the next page, this is the website that we did use, and you can log on. You can create an account if you want to track your food, if you want to save your recipes. You can go on calorie count, and it's caloriecountAbout.com, and then you type in recipe analysis, and you can enter anything. And it was really user friendly. It gave you lots of choices, and it told you if something wasn't correct, you know. Also, another good site, I didn't use it for this one, is the self-nutrition data. That's the next page in your handout. You can kind of do the same thing or look up popular food items that you may purchase or make. And then also, I threw in this because we did the Southern cooking. American Diabetes, this is one example of a really good recipe that cookbook that they have, Soul Food Cooking. They have tons of other cooking recipe books, cookbooks on their website. So if you are diabetic or even if you're not, their recipes are wonderful and healthy to use. So I know registered dietitians often refer to those too. So I just put that in there so you could see an example of one that they have. Okay? And then Rich made the side dishes as well.
You'll see sweet potatoes on your plate, and those sweet potatoes, that's a recipe that's a little bit of a response to those deadly sweet potatoes that are baked with maple syrup, brown sugar, marshmallows. Essentially, they're candied sweet potatoes.
But yours are not.
No, these are
That's what he's
these
saying.
are sweet potatoes baked in the jacket, removed from the jacket, mashed, a little bit of orange zest. You see this bald orange? So it's got the orange zest, which you can just take it off with a grater, or you can take it off with a vegetable peeler and then mince it and add that. Maybe about a half cup of orange juice. And then, has anybody seen the chipotle peppers in adobo sauce? It's a tomato sauce. They're small cans. You'll see them on the Mexican foods aisle. I took the chipotle peppers, and I use a hand blender, and I puree them. And what that gives you is a chipotle sauce, sort of a concentrate that is low sugar. It might have a little bit of sodium in it. Has a lot of flavor. You use it sparingly, and that combination of sweet and hot was supposed to, I use that just to make it a little bit more satisfying and a little bit to wake up your taste buds. I try to be a little bit sparing in using it. Typically, I'd throw it in there the way some people throw a lot of garlic into food. You know, you become desensitized to it, and then you've got to have it in everything.
Yeah.
The black beans are a response to the baked beans that we see on a lot of buffet tables, church suppers, Sunday suppers.
Really
Baked
good
beans can be kind of deadly when you take a baked bean that has high fructose corn syrup and other sugars added to it, maple, brown sugar, then bacon, then ketchup, which also is heavy in sugar. And so if you pull back from that, to get the protein benefit and the fiber benefit of the black beans, I would simply, open like a 15.5-ounce can, which is a standard size can, rinse the beans under tap water to cut the sodium, and then using just enough red or green bell pepper. If I don't want to buy the whole pepper, I'll scout out the salad bar at the grocery store to buy just enough that I need, and instead of paying $1.79 for the pepper, I'm paying about 80 cents for as much pepper as I want to use. I buy scallions because I'm not really a big fan of onions. I know there's really no difference, but I buy
Tastes a little bit to
scallions,
me.
and the scallion, then I also have a garnish for it, and I'm able to use the sliced green part on top of it. I used ground cumin, and I always have salsa in the fridge, and I think most of us do. Most American, salsa is more popular than ketchup now as a condiment in America, which is a cool thing. You might have to watch out for the sodium grams, but typically it's going to be lower in sugar. And so those black beans with cumin, scallion, red and, or rather yellow and green bell pepper, and the black beans, those are the only ingredients. And you can certainly doctor it up by adding lime juice, oregano, or other seasonings so that you really take it more to a sort of a Mexican, to sort of plug it into any Mexican meat or marinated meat. Pardon? I don't. Those now, if you want more of a whole bean, like a bean in a sort of a tomatoey sauce that isn't sweet, you cook these in 15 minutes. You drain the beans. When you drain the beans, some of the starches that are broken down that are in the can are going to be rinsed away as well. And you got those beans, and they're going to be more of a whole bean. If you want to cook them down, and it's your choice, I did this so that it would be a little bit more almost like a refried. Then you simply drain them, put them into a Dutch oven. I didn't even add olive oil to this, and I think I added just a little bit of water. Also, I use low sodium chicken broth, and the low sodium chicken broth. If you compare the low sodium of this to the basic Swanson's chicken broth, it's really amazing how much sodium they pack into it.
Yeah.
And I did the same for the green bean.
Yeah,
It has a lot of flavor too.
And then I did add a little bit of this, so it's not total vegetarian. It's not completely vegetarian, but that was not, that was a cheat, and I didn't know that anybody here would be vegetarians. So
Yeah, they knew they were getting meat.
Okay.
They registered, so.
I will interrupt and say black beans are a power food. And so you're getting a lot of bang for what you're getting in a small amount, a lot of nutrition, a lot of protein, a lot of fiber. So baked beans are a power food.
Which dish did you put the chipotle pepper?
I put the chipotle into the sweet potatoes. It's just that light smoky flavor, and you can certainly add more.
Do you think you get the same flavor with a little bit of cayenne? Or
I think the cayenne is going to heat it up, but I think to
Yeah.
get the smoke, chipotle pepper is a smoked jalapeno pepper. And they pack it in, they're small cans, they're like $1.79. You puree one of those, you've got it for 3-4 weeks in the refrigerator. And it,
The broth, is it better to have stock or broth? That's the question.
Stock is going to have more fat.
More fat, yeah.
Yeah.
But not as much sodium or everything else, or just fatty?
I would say it's very easy to make your own.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
easy, and you can skim off at the top after you boil some
Stock
chicken.
is
But
thicker when you're cooking. Some things require that, but you can also add cornstarch or flour to thicken it.
I was just wondering on nutrition basis about stock versus.
you know,
Just the fat.
I don't
believe
trust
as well.
anything they tell me on the label except for the nutrition label.
Yeah.
I don't, because food marketers and food scientists get paid a lot of money to make things that aren't really that healthy for you seem healthy. And then you get confused in the market, and you pull down the thing that's calling out to you, and come to find out it's only as healthy as a candy bar would be.
it can be
So-
confusing.
And just one
Very much
comment
so.
about the laughing cow.
Uh-huh.
If anybody is interested in it, Sam sells those wheels in a 3-pack for about $7.
Okay.
That's where I buy it.
Did we pass along a small sheet that's like healthy choices at Costco, Sam's, and BJ's?
I think I saw.
I've got some out here, and I'm going to pass those around. We didn't want to inundate you at first, but you can eat very, very healthfully when you go to Sam's, Costco's, and BJ's, because the prices on olive oils, herbs,
Very
spices, lemons, limes, vinegars, beans in bulk, chicken broth in bulk. It's kind of rare to go into a store and see a great price on a chicken broth, because it's that last thing that you grab, and they know they've got you. But when you buy a 3-pack or a 6-pack of something like that, you can really bring the cost down. And then also, you know that you're getting a good, fairly healthy product that you know, you can base your cooking on. So the grams of sodium of that, and you know, you can compare that even to a Swanson reduced sodium broth,
Very
and then
good.
a Swanson full sodium broth on the aisles at Costco. It's pretty striking, the difference.
70 milligrams in 1 cup.
This wasn't in my packet.
Of course, I have plenty. I'll make sure you get one.
This plate seems like it's pretty full.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how many calories would you estimate that would be on this plate if we were eating it for lunch total?
We did that with the, you can use for the 3 main dishes that we had, the chicken, the corn pudding, and the green bean casserole. Those nutrition labels are per serving, which is a half a cup, which is what we gave you all. 6 ounces of chicken and a half a cup of each of the corn pudding and the green bean casserole. So you can add that together.
Half cup rule.
The half cup
I've
roll,
never
exactly.
been proven wrong.
I hope everyone is enjoying it. When you're cooking for a large group like this, you can imagine you want to be safe, so perhaps the chicken may be a little bit drier, but I wanted to make sure we had good, healthy chicken. We do have some more time for a few more questions, and then I do have an evaluation sheet, too, that you all will complete, and please, if you would, and send back to me, because we do we do want to take this to the other locations. We plan to come out to Fire Station 6 sometime this summer, and if this is not something that tasted good, then we don't want to do it. So again, your feedback on that would be greatly appreciated too.
I can definitely say I love the color. If you look at your plate, orange, green, yellow, yes, a variety of colors, so that means good nutrition and good vitamins and nutrients. Good fiber.
When you talk about the 2,000 calories per day, does that include the calories in the occasional glass of wine, which is heart healthy, that they say from time to time? I'm just in general.
Is that like 2 or 3 ounces that you're talking about at night?
Sure, yes, that minimal every now and again.
2 to 4 ounces, they say, actually. Yes, that they say is good for you.
He says to add a full-bodied red. Is that where you got it from?
That's what
Yeah.
jogged my memory, so I was wondering, does that count toward the 2,000?
It does, but it's occasional, so you wouldn't have to worry
sure.
about
yes,
that.
Yes, ma'am. No, not every day.
Yeah. And just remember, ladies, the 2,000 that we're talking about, cutting back on some of the carbohydrates could easily be 1,500 to 1,800 calories, which is more recommended for weight loss, if that's what your desire is. But at the same time, just like the plate that you have in front of you, it's well balanced. I see carbohydrate, I see fiber, protein, the right amount of carbohydrates as well. So
Are you a fan of supplementing with vitamins and?
it just depends, individual.
Okay.
You know, usually what your body does not need, it excretes. It will come out. But
Okay.
particularly for children, sometimes if they're not really big at taking in or eating the right amount of and nutrients from foods, I am a fan of certain kinds of vitamins.
Okay.
Good questions.
It is 1 o'clock. It is 1 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. Obviously, stay, finish your meal if you can. We do have seconds. Not that you need them, but we hope you enjoyed it, and thank you all for coming. And please, thank you. Please be sure to. That's great. It went off without a hitch. Yeah, please be sure to take an evaluation with you, and you can inter-office it back to me. My name's right at the bottom. Yep, and my email too. And cookies. Angie made oatmeal cookies. Oatmeal, high in fiber.
Fiber cookies, can't beat that.
Thank you all very much.